Include now. Brought to you by Even Break.
Hello and welcome to another Include Now After the Pod. I'm your host Josh, and I'm joined by my wonderful, sometimes co-host Adam, and the certainly wonderful Jess. So, thank you so much for coming on. And if you're not quite certain how this part of our podcast works, this is the part of the episode where I ask you a couple of queries from our candidates.
Fantastic.
And I think that it will lead very nicely on from the very powerful conversation that you had earlier with Adam too. So, kicking off, what is the best way to improve diversity or disability representation in the workplace?
So I think there's probably a couple of things in terms of the best ways to improve representation. One, I'm going to give a plug for Even Break, because actually when we realised, and I want to say we've been working with Jane now for 3-4 years now, maybe just a little bit. I know Jane and I had kind of had discussions probably pre-COVID, but then realised once we got back out of COVID and we were recruiting again and doing those types of things, that we're missing such a large pool of talent within the organisation. And so I hadn't known Jane and wanted to come and work with her and really get her help. So I think it is actually, organisations need to recognise that they're missing out on talent within their organisation. Work with companies like Even Break to kind of say, okay, advertise our jobs, but also help us learn what we're not doing. And it was even simple things, when we first started working with Jane, and we said, look, we've kind of got this disclaimer in the job advert, but I said it feels like a legal disclaimer, and I said I hate the way it feels, but I don't know what to change. And she said, bring it up front and center and not make it sound like a legal disclaimer, because people will know then that you're really authentic around disability inclusion. And so we are constantly learning, we're constantly evolving. We will get it wrong, absolutely. But we're okay for you to say, hey, you've got that wrong, and could you just change that so it doesn't make me feel like. And so I think it's being humble enough and authentic enough and vulnerable enough to go, we absolutely know we want and need disability talent. We will get it wrong, so please call it out for us. Learn, listen, take the advice on board. Just don't see it as criticism, take it as advice to help us get better. So I think there's lots of things we can do to make sure we become a more inclusive or disability inclusive employer, but certainly recognizing and listening to talent in our organization and external talent. If we get it wrong, tell us.
Because as I talk to our candidates quite often too, I think that is honestly the closest to a perfect answer, because a lot of our candidates just want to apply for a role at a company that is clearly trying, where like I was talking to a person recently, and it's clear that if a company says that they're perfect, clearly, yeah, where people can sort of quickly tell. Where I think it's important for not only other companies that are wanting to become more inclusive, but I think it's very important for our candidates to hear that companies are like open to hearing their points, and also recognizing that the change to make a workplace like more inclusive, that has to happen over time, and
Yes.
it's where like it's a continuous process as well.
Yeah, I think if it's not a continuous process, for me it feels a little bit like a tick box, because you've gone, oh, I've done that, I don't need to go back and address it again, I don't need to look at it again, because, well, it's done, it's ticked. It's not like washing the dishes. It's not that simple. It's okay, I've made this change, and now how do I keep evolving and listening and taking the feedback from candidates to say, actually, I didn't like that, or that didn't make me feel very good, or actually that I found that part difficult in the process.
Yeah.
Or actually I'm dyslexic and I just need the questions in advance, or actually I suffer from anxiety and I really need to understand how's this going to work, what's going to happen here, or actually what's the disabled access like, where's the bathrooms, all those simple things that just put people at ease when they're applying for a job. Actually anything we can do to make it simpler, easier, more welcoming, you know, we're really open to. It's still a meritocracy, it is still the best person for the job, but that's the only way somebody wants to be judged getting a job. They don't want any other way to get the job. So actually, if we can take away all the things that prevent and create barriers, and just let you excel in your technical skills and sell yourself, then that's what all employers should be doing.
Yeah. Like, is there like anything that you would like to add on top of that, Adam?
I don't think there's much to add to that answer. I guess anything I would just say is to jump back to things just mentioned earlier. We need to get senior leaders buy-in. So it's about giving the business case as well, I think, and that will in turn increase more disabled people representation into the workplace, because we know that, as that people want to be judged on their talent. We know there's huge pools of talent out there, and ultimately organisations need that talent, and that talent comes in many different forms and facets of humans.
Yeah.
Certainly. Well, like, and just moving on, like, what's the best tip that you have for someone that's beginning their career in a DI role?
Yeah. I think find somebody more experienced and ask them if they can mentor you, if they can be available to kind of help and share their experience, because I think the D&I role, it's been around for a while. If I think about myself, as I said, about 14-ish years, but I know there's been people who have been in the role, a lot longer. But then there's a lot of new talent coming in. So I think it is absolutely trying to find somebody who can help mentor you, who's in the role, I think is really key. I think the other thing is take the time to learn. There's a lot in this space. And if I think about all the protected characteristics in the Equalities Act, and my role covers all of that across, close to 9,000 people across 25 plus countries, there's a lot to take in. I can't know all of that. And so it is making sure that you've got somebody in legal that you can work with and internally in your company, or if you don't have somebody, because lots of small companies don't have internal legal teams or internal employee relations teams, having somebody outside in your network of people, I think is really, really important. So kind of get a mentor, have continuous learning and thinking about what is it that I need to learn. But maybe also if you've got the opportunity, ask within your team, if you don't need to be a kind of a person of all trades, I don't have to know everything. Actually, can I specialize in the LGBT community and learn more in-depth knowledge versus kind of topical? Or can I learn more about disability, or can I learn more about well-being and neurodivergence, and try and specialize a little bit if you've got the opportunity, versus trying to do kind of the icing on the cake. Try and get all the ingredients together so you can learn those pieces that I think longer term helps you pull it together as your career grows and progresses.
Cool. Perfect. Like in the last one is, how do we, as people in the inclusion sector, make the most impact?
It's a hard question.
Isn't it?
So I think, again, and I'm feeling a little repetitive here because I don't want to say the same thing, but I think what you don't want is to tick a box. Yeah. And I think sometimes the days where actually I feel I've made the biggest impact is where I've helped one person. Because actually I've changed the life of one person, or made it easier for one person. And so I think sometimes we need to recognize that although you might be doing the systemic change and looking at policy and looking at process and identifying, language in guidebooks and learning and, thinking about how you raise the consciousness of people. But when you have one person come to you at the end of the day and say, actually, you've really helped me today. You've given me that space, or you've showed allyship, or you've done something, you've advocated for me today. I think that's the really impactful change. And I think these roles, we're in place to lead systemic change and to make those fundamental changes to organizations. And that impacts a lot of people, but you don't often hear the result of it. And so hearing that is the key piece, or being that person for somebody is key.
Where like certainly at Even Break we cover quite a lot of ground, and obviously, like if we're just from my part of talking to candidates, you sometimes often forget that that these are sort of real people, but because I'm sort of sending them an email talking on what we can offer, and even sort of having that one person come and talk to you, and just sort of where they've said that our coaching or something has really supported them in looking for work, where it's cool to actually see the impact as well.
No,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's just important to realise that we are here, as I said, my role is here to make that global systemic change and to think about policy and strategy. But actually the days where I walk out and I'm like, yeah, I've done a good job today, is where you get that one-on-one feedback and you've had that connection with somebody.
Yeah, of course. So we've reached the part of the episode where you get to ask Adam and I some things. So
tables are turned.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to this.
Take it away.
Take it away. So I think, Josh, as you say, you're dealing with the candidates and you're communicating with them. But thinking about what is that one thing, kind of 6-12 months from now, if you were to say organizations, what would you address? What's that one change that you would want to see organizations change to make sure we were a more inclusive place? Or what's that voice that you're hearing from candidates?
Where from speaking to candidates, I would just put it across as sort of like equal opportunity, where like you kind of talked on it previously, that becoming a more inclusive workplace lets every person have that equitable opportunity to actually show a company that they're the best person for that position, and of course there are like a lot of companies that are learning to create that workplace, but certainly where from talking to candidates, it is just like allowing those people to have the opportunity to prove that they're the right person. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? We said, taking away those barriers and making sure that they're able to shine in the interview process and able to kind of say who they are. If we can get better at that, and if all organizations can get better at that, but I think that's our kind of goal this year, is to keep improving that and keep making sure we ask the questions of, is there anything we can do to help you be more successful in the interview process? So that's good feedback for us. Thank you. Am I allowed to ask Adam?
Yes.
Right, okay. You see organisations, and not just RS, you see lots of organisations, but RS is in that same boat, so we need to get better at it, where the top of the organisation is homogenous. So they are typically male, white, they are heterosexual, they are cisgendered, they are not disabled. So their lived experience is very narrow in comparison, or very different, not narrow, very different to somebody else's lived experience. But how do we help them broaden that out? What's that one piece of learning you would encourage us to give to our senior leaders?
I love that question, and very well put. I think for me, the answer is actually quite simple. Not easy to do, but some people are quite simple, which is we need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I guess what I mean by that is we need to understand that regardless of intent, our actions, our decisions or historical processes that we in place are getting in the way of creating a more inclusive and, quite frankly, better and innovative organisation.
Yeah.
And I think by being uncomfortable, it's not about saying, hand up with and respond, but it's like hearing what has happened and is happening now, and sitting with him, hearing him, valuing the feedback, showing humility, and being really clear about what we're going to do going forward to break that mold. So I think that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but it's about being comfortable with being uncomfortable and recognising where we are.
Yeah. And I think it's a really good piece of advice, because often senior leaders lean away from the uncomfortable. And I think what we've seen over the last couple of years have leaned away from it more because they're scared of our litigious society.
Yeah.
Whereas if I say something wrong, somebody might take real offence and not let me learn. But actually we want to create that safe space where you can lean in and be uncomfortable and sit with that and be okay with it. And so I think that's a great piece of advice for us to continue to do, of help our leaders to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
And have to respond instantly. In fact, don't respond instantly. Hear it.
Yeah. Thank you.
What, like, well, because I think that that's the perfect place to end the episode. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Like, and thank you for leading the way on some powerful change too. So yeah.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
And if you've enjoyed this episode of the Include Now After pod, don't forget to like, comment, and sub, and hopefully we'll catch you next time too.